I was just out for a walk. Yeah, I've decided I'm moving to Paris.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm sure you will love it.
Yeah. You think so?
Down with the OG, blue with the berries like Goji, smile like she know me.
It's a sample from the movie Midnight in Paris, and it's the very end where Owen Wilson finally ditches Rachel McAdams and decides he's going to move to Paris.
It all on my plate, get to chewing. Green fairy, long hairy, don't carry mad dairy, she chew me.
And gets kind of almost ambushed by the girl that he's been falling for on a bridge in Paris over the Seine.
Welcome to a Kiwi original. This is episode 25, and today on the show we have taken a hard right turn off the business track, although we're going to get back into the business track because we're talking about the business model of music, and not just any music, Kiwi local talent. And the person we've got on the show today is none other than the artist Hoody Time. So welcome to the show, Hoody Time.
Thanks, Ryan. It's good to be here, brother.
Now, the reason I've got Hoody Time on the show is we actually licensed some music from his back catalogue to help with our Making It New Zealand series. And one of the challenges I had when filming that was how to make it feel like it really was New Zealand. And that wasn't just the look, but it needed to sound New Zealand. Do you want to explain, like, when you got that request from me, like, what was that out of the blue, or is that kind of the norm for you? What happens when someone says, hey, I like your music and I want to license it?
Actually, licensing don't come by as often as we'd like them as musicians. That there's a lot of good exposure, let alone, a little bit of paycheck here and there with some licensing. But until you reached out with the Buy NZ Made campaign, really the only licensing that I had done were for short films and movies. So some of my music has made it into some short films and student films at NYU and for some smaller independent films that have been made. But this was the first that I partnered with a business campaign. And, paperwork and stuff is always standard. That's the same. But it was definitely a new audience that my music was going to be reaching, and probably a lot of different heads that probably wouldn't have found me otherwise. So that was a plus, and I was happy to jump on board. And my big thing is that music is just a complete priority in my life. It always has been. And moving to New Zealand, I've had a very fun experience here in the music scene. It's completely different from the United States scene in many ways. But it was great to be able to license my music in conjunction with something that was totally Kiwi, and in a time where I was feeling completely immersed in the Kiwi scene and also accepted by so many in this community. So it was something I was keen to jump on right away, and I'm glad we did.
Now, you're based in Nelson, is that right?
Yeah, based in Nelson.
So that was the connection initially. When I was looking for music, I was looking for regional talent to represent the regional businesses, and the one in your area, it wasn't that easy to find people, but the one in your area, the business was Jens Hansen Jewelry, who does,
absolutely,
the One Ring. Like
the One Ring. And how could I not provide the soundtrack to the One Ring?
So it was, they were getting the benefit of your musical interpretation, and the song, looking through your catalog, I think it was back in 2018, there was this one called Paris, and it starts out with like this synth or this keyboard, din 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 din, and then there's this monologue of a guy kind of chatting up the girl, and it sounds like someone famous in that. Intro.
It's a sample from the movie Midnight in Paris, and it's the very end where Owen Wilson finally ditches Rachel McAdams and decides he's going to move to Paris, and gets kind of almost ambushed by the girl that he's been falling for on a bridge in Paris over the Seine.
And I heard that and that intro, and I'm like, this is a love story, and it's based in Paris which is the glitz and the diamonds. And here's this connection to a local artist in Nelson that's looking like they're doing some big things in the New Zealand music stage. I thought this is a connection that might work. Did you notice that, like when the request came through, that it was? Did you see any relationship between Yen Hansen Jewelry and the Paris track?
I had never thought about it before. I was very aware of Jens Hansen because I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan, obviously. But when you hit me up with the request, and I knew it was going to be for the One Ring, there was only one song, and that was definitely Paris. Yeah.
Love it. And I think some of the challenges for business is, how do you go about finding good local talent? Is it through the production agencies, the record companies? Do you go direct? What software is it on, or what platforms? How do you go about finding people that are the next big thing?
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's probably a question that you think about for your own purposes more than I do. But I do run an independent record label, so I'm also always searching for who's doing what and what the next big sound is and stuff. I have always been one to go direct to whoever's creating whatever I'm looking for. I think that as an artist, it feels really great when someone reaches out and says, "Hey, I felt a connection to your music." Whatever avenue they want to take that down is usually a win for considering. We consider it a win as an artist, whether it's licensing or just using it in their podcast or posting it on whatever people want to do. When people approach you as an independent artist, it feels good to know that your work is valued to the point where someone else wants to be involved. So I always go direct if I'm looking to work with artists or just employ anyone's skills outside of my own for collaborations. I always try to go direct to the artist, direct to the videographer, direct to the graphic designer. So
that's good to hear that, because
yeah.
that was the approach that I used, was just starting to search through SoundCloud and look for just you do like a location search and find, if I could find an Auckland artist. Then I found this one called Ven and contacted him, and he's like, "How did you even find me?" Because he had 11 plays on this one song. I'm like, "This song sounds mechanical, like it sounds like industry. I need to put this with the construction of tool belts." So let's get back to you. So that was a couple of years ago when we did the collaboration with the song Paris and Yen Hansen Jewelry. I think we did another track with Tallies as well, which was a bit more of a hardcore track, and I had to cover some of your lyrics with machine sounds to make sure that it was corporate PC enough.
Indeed, yeah.
But I just love the energy in the song. So since then to now, like paint a picture of what's Hoody Time been up to. What have you been releasing? What's been taking up your creative space?
So 2019, I focused on singles. I had done pretty well with that song Paris. Actually, it hit number 3. I think, I got to number 3 on the iTunes charts here in New Zealand. And so I figured that all my 2018 singles had done well, including Paris, and we had another number 1 after Paris. So I figured, singles were the way to go. 2019, I was going to focus just on singles, making sure that they were the same Hoody Time energy and witty lyricism, that people come to expect with my music. But we went a different, couple different avenues with the production. So one of the tracks, I'm not going to name the name of the track on the show. It's not corporate PC, but featured some Indian and subcontinental influence in the production. And one of the tracks, MJ, was produced by a guy, Snow, the track god up in Wellington.
And I be on that same new everything. And yo, I'm lit low key like James. Scotty of the spotties, homie, out of the main. Yeah, I'm well done like a Donald Trump steak. 7 grand bluff and to eat the whole.
We hadn't worked together yet, so that was another thing that we built into 2019 is collaborating with more New Zealand talent. So between new sounds and new faces and voices, and just the same Hoody Time energy and kind of funny wit that people expect. That's how we handled 2019. We did 6 singles. We spent a lot of time and energy making videos for a few and doing our press releases and making sure those got out to the right ears. All of which I think are more than 25,000 streams on Spotify at this point. So doing pretty well for some independent blokes just putting out music. But the real work was kind of getting over the fact that we couldn't tour in this beginning part of 2020. So I was touring all throughout 2017, 2018, and scaled it back a bit in 2019 to write more music. I think I only probably played like 10 to 12 shows in 2019, and 2018, 2017, I was playing 30, 40, 50 shows per those years.
Wow.
So I scaled it back a lot in 2019 to focus on writing and stuff. And 2020 comes along, and still riding off of the 2019 singles, had some big shows that I played with Savage and Sid Diamond, a few other Kiwi legends. So that was all kind of helping the ball stay rolling while I wasn't playing as many shows and I wasn't releasing as much music. And then Corona happened. So I was about to release a lineup for a tour. We were going to go back on tour again. And obviously we can't do that in this time and place right now. So the focus switched to how can I use my quarantine time to capitalize on my fan base, growing that fan base, and how can I capitalize on other areas of music that I haven't touched yet. So that led to a lot more collaborations. That led to a lot of podcasts that I really haven't done before, including yourself. This will be 4 podcasts since lockdown started, which is great. It's a great way to make connections and to get your brand and your music in front of other faces, other ears.
What are some of the other podcasts that you've been on?
So there's one called Choose Your Struggle out of South Carolina, and that is a podcast by my friend Jay Schiffman. He talks weekly about substance abuse, addiction, mental health, and how that pertains to either the guest's life or their occupation or any of their experience that ties into those mental health issues, mainly to raise awareness and to eradicate the stigma that is out there about mental health. I'm set up to do a Tuesday catch up with Westwood Management. They're out of Melbourne, and they help early on artists kind of jumpstart their careers. So folks who are early on in the music industry who need help with the business side of things and the branding side of things, and how do I get my music on all these streaming platforms? How do I book my first show? So they're a really cool agency out of Melbourne, and they do a lot for emerging artists. So we're going to talk, I think, in the next week or two on that podcast. And then another one out of Cincinnati called Total Power Move, where my friend Tyler has been doing this podcast for a while. He has anyone from any background come on and talk about how they have made their mark on their industry. And so that's been a great way to continue to foster connections that I've already had, but also build new ones and find new ears to listen to some Hoody Time. So that's been 2020 in a nutshell, is just trying to cram everything into this lockdown period and to take advantage of it. I've written 13 songs now. And we're going to have all those released between May 29th and the middle of August. So while we can't play shows, there's going to be almost weekly releases. There's new videos on the way. There's new collaborations on the way. It's been a really good time so far in 2020, despite not being able to play shows.
So you've managed to turn that weakness of not being able to get out there physically in front of your fans into turning inwards and letting the creative juices flow and actually create some future either monetizable music or future opportunities for your fans to listen to something new from an artist that they already enjoy listening to. Then how do you know what to do with that when you've got your 12 tracks? And do you have to look at them and think, do they hang together? Is that an album? Like, the old days when I was a teenager, a long time ago, it was a $34.95 CD, and it seems that the record label monetized that piece of plastic and did a very good job of it. And then, MP3s came along and streaming came along, and, there's no money in the album sale as such. Maybe I'm wrong. And it seems to be more that you need a quantity of audio content that you just keep spoon feeding your audience and hoping that they keep sharing it with their audience. What is the model so you've got these 12, what are the options that you're, throwing up? Should I do this versus this? Should I leave this back? Should I put them all out?
So I do everything for Hoody Time. So just for the listeners who don't know much about me, I do tour and I record all the music and I write all the music and stuff, but I self-manage, I book all the shows and tours. Anything that is Hoody Time, I do it. My girlfriend, Liat, she does the graphic design and she built the website, and we work hand in hand with some of our social marketing. So at best, it's a two-person team. So there's a lot of work that goes behind everything that comes out with Hoody Time on it. With those 12 tracks in mind, I have always been very calculated because I know that there's a huge process from idea to product that's been launched. And so when I get the ideas for songs, especially since I'm working with so many new producers now, I categorize them in different parts of my project pipeline, I guess is what you could call it. So for instance, I have 2 tracks with this producer from Nelson. His name is Fizkari, and he's 18 years old. He makes really cool hip hop and electronic beats. And he approached me and said, hey, I'd like to put you on some of my music and release it together. Cool. We did 2 tracks. Those stand alone as themselves. They're singles and they'll be released a month apart. Strategically, we collaborated on it. So we released it as a collaboration in Spotify, meaning it'll show up on my page and his page, and any stream gets a stream for each of us. Any follower is a follower for each of us, right? So there are definitely some strategies that I always have in mind that will play well for some projects and not others. For Hoody Time only music, I have 2 EPs that are coming out of those 12 songs. One is a 2-track EP coming out on June 5th. That's called Lost and Found. And these songs had a completely new sound for me. I was left with only a broken electric bass guitar during lockdown, and that was my only musical instrument I managed to keep in the house before everything locked down. So I ended up picking it up, writing a few bass lines, doing some riffs and diddles, and sent it to some of my producers, and we ended up making 2 tracks that are kind of new wave emo hip hop, but with a very heavy hitting 808s like you're used to in all the Hoody Time music. They still thump, but very bass driven, guitar driven, and kind of a Blink-182 influence almost, which is a huge part of my musical history, being the Blink-182 fan. So those are being released by themselves simply because they have a whole new sound. It's still Hoody Time, but it was kind of a concept project. And the EP is called Lost and Found. The first track is called Lost. The second track is called Found. And it's all about the dichotomies that we face in our lives. Feeling lost when you're not lost. Going through loss, but also gaining new friends or new family. Feeling the feelings of like self-deprecation for artists. We're our own harshest critics. So all of those things that go on inside of us and kind of tug at each other, the dichotomies of everyday life. That's what the whole EP is about. So that's why I'm releasing it by itself, especially because it's a new sound. The second EP is 4 tracks. It's called 1988. And that is with, those are all 4 produced by Joe Hill. He lives here in Nelson, and he approached me with some content. We had a few studio sessions, and all of these tracks again have their own sound as well. Still very much Hoody Time, but these are not tracks for the club. These are tracks for people to dissect the lyrics and to relate to these songs. They're very personal, and they tell a story kind of together of what it was like for people growing up in my era. So everything that I experienced being a kid born in 1988 can be found in the lyrics of these 4 songs. So those are on their own as well. Touching on your album thought, I think that albums, honestly, are a fantastic media form still, but albums are being reserved now for artists who already have a huge following, and with that said, a following that doesn't mind taking 40 minutes out of their day to listen to a whole damn album. People have they just have no attention span anymore, do they? So, we go online, we scroll. What does it take to get someone to stop scrolling? Probably not a 40-minute album unless you're Jay-Z, right? So that's why we focus on small projects, focus on collaborations, singles, things that are more easily digestible and that can reach a bigger base. So the more people who work on a project, the more people who are proud of that project, that's so many more circles than just your own. And I think that things that are smaller, shorter, easier to digest are the way to go. And if that's a music video, you're in better luck with those, because a lot of people, not only do they not have a good attention span, but they can't even begin to support something unless something catches them first visually. And so that's oftentimes music videos are what do the heavy lifting for new singles that come out.
I'd agree with that. Like, that's what you've just described there is actually very similar to the marketing world that brands live in currently. Is that when you've got infinite content, thumb scroll away, there is no scarcity. So it does require something to be thumb stopping, I call it. Like, it's going to stop your thumb in its tracks. And it may just be 6 words of text. It may be an image. It may be a video. It could be audio with captions, those first couple of sentences. But it's not 40 minutes of content. It's a breadcrumb. It's not the whole loaf. And the idea is, I think, for brands, and maybe this sounds like it could be similar with artists, is to put enough breadcrumbs out there, and collaboration is a great way of doing it.
Yeah.
Because you reach audiences you wouldn't do, and you may not get all of them across. Like, people listening to Hoody Time and Ryan Jennings right now are listening to two very different worlds, but that creates curiosity, right? Like, that in itself is like, okay, what am I going to learn from Hoody Time in terms of how he's approaching creativity? What am I going to learn from Ryan? What's the business model behind that? I think there's some real opportunities. But it does take a different approach. And I think the long form, like podcasting or albums, can work when you've already got someone who's picked up a dozen or 20 breadcrumbs. And maybe for you that is, I mean, don't want to put words in your mouth, but and I still haven't got to one of your gigs yet, but gigs are memorable. Like, I can remember going to, Eminem in Milton Keynes, just on the outside of London. And I mean, the show was great, and 50 Cent was great afterwards. But the rage and the energy in the crowd before Eminem came on stage, and just feeling that energy, like, I'm still remembering it right now, like it was yesterday. Like, it was somewhere between absolute chaos and violence until he got on there. It was just, there was a lot of energy. So what's it like when you've been in lockdown, you've made these tracks, when you're in the studio, you're very inwardly focused, and then bam, it's out. You've got this. These are your precious jewels that you've created. You've forged out of nothing. Now you're going to expose it to the world. You've got to remember all the words. You've got to think about how, like, what's that process like from going inwards to outwards, and then introducing it and pressing upload and turning up and turning on the mic?
Oh my God, it's fantastic, because the hardest part about being an artist, in my opinion, aside from not touring during coronavirus, is waiting for your project to drop. I hate sitting on music. I hate it. I don't like when there's music in my pipeline. I got 12 songs in there right now. It's giving me anxiety. I don't like it. So I love when the music drops. And there's a whole lot of work that happens before the music drops, but the real heavy work starts when the music does drop. Press releases, getting all your friends and family to start tweeting it out first, so it gets a little bit of roll on the ball. And of course, like you said, shows. And honestly, I think that playing shows, live performances, are the number one way to make new fans and to retain those new fans and old fans. People don't forget a Hoody Time show, whether there were 20 people there or 2,000 people there. And I've played both kinds of shows and I love them both. People don't forget it. You know, I've always been one to show up early and stay late, and I dap it up and hang out and take shots with whoever wants to. And it's a great way to become not just an artist, but a personality, a friend almost, you know. And I was talking to Kate Westwood from Westwood Management last night, planning our next podcast. And she said, you know, the only critique I would have for Hoody Time is that there's, is that you don't post enough of your personality on your official pages. It's mostly just music. You know, I do my cooking show sometimes, and I put up, you know, Kiwi related posts like, you know, sausage roll or meat pie. Let's settle it once and for all. You know, they create good engagement. But she makes a good point, is that people don't just fall in love with music. They fall in love with a personality, with a person, a character. And so one of my goals now in 2020, thank you, Kate Westwood, is putting more Joey into the Hoody Time project. And live shows can't happen right now. So that's going to take the form of podcasts and new types of creative marketing and more collabs and live streams and, you know, showing people the music early before it comes out. I think that's a great way to build some rapport with fans, and also become the personality that's also, you know, attached to this music that they've heard. But yeah, the number one way is live shows. It sucks that we can't play them right now, because every time I play a show, like I said, whether there's 20 people there or 2,000 people there, the Hoody Time social media goes crazy the next week. And, you know, lots of new friends, lots of new artists who want, you know, to either work together or want some advice in the music industry. And shows are the way, man. And I can't wait till they're back.
Just picking up on you saying that, you know, giving some sneak peeks of music early. If our editors were to cut in one of your tracks right now, what track should it be?
I'll give you Lost, the first, the leading single off of Lost and Found EP that comes out June 5th. I'll be happy to shoot that over to you.
I used to get a lot done, playing in the hot sun, steady calling shotgun, don't care what it costs, it's like I put the drugs down, my life is a come down, don't know where to run now I think I'm lost, damn I think I'm lost. Like damn I think I'm lost. Damn I think I'm lost. Where am I going? Somebody show me, can anybody hear me? Does anybody know me? Can anybody see me? Who am I? Where am I going? Somebody show me. Can anybody hear me? Where am I? Where am I going? Does anybody know me? Can anybody see me? Who am I?
In your face, camel cake. In your rear, how dare you? Blind, fine, spine, prine, ultra pig. You look crude, rude, bag of pre-chewed food, dude.
I used to give a shit, boy, listen to my hits, boy, living for the clicks, boy, prison of my thoughts, wake up, get a grip, boy, you only need a trip, boy, it ain't time to dip, boy, you ain't even lost, nah, you ain't even lost. But damn, I think I'm lost. Damn, I think I'm lost. Where am I going? Somebody show me, can anybody hear me? Where am I? Where am I going? Does anybody know me? Can anybody see me? Who am I? Where am I going? Somebody show me, can anybody hear me? Where am I? Where am I going? Does anybody know me? Can anybody see me? Who am I? Where am I going? Somebody show me, can anybody hear me? Where am I? Where am I going? Does anybody know me? Can anybody see me? Who am I? Where am I going? Somebody show me, can anybody hear me? Where am I? Where am I going? Does anybody know me? Can anybody see me? Who am I?
Sorry to interrupt. This won't take long. Subscribe to the show and you'll never miss another one of these amazing episodes. Right, back to the show. You know, New Zealand Music Commission has New Zealand Music Month. There are a ton of artists trying to break through. The internet makes it easy for everyone to post and publish and be an artist, but doesn't necessarily help with being picked to be an artist that can actually make a living from it. From the artists in your network and the ones that you know are doing a great job of this, what does it take? Like, what are the elements of success that are shared amongst your peers?
I would say that probably I'm a little bit biased because I like the music for the music. I don't care how many followers you have and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I'll put out a collaboration or put someone as a support act if they've got 10 followers. I don't care. Just as long as the music slaps. But in terms of folks in the New Zealand music scene who have got it down pat, from making great music to marketing that music and getting that heard and getting on some big stages, Mellow Downs, I think hands down, is my favorite. He's a great dude. We've played together a time or two, and the dude hustles. His music is fantastic. He's got a great aesthetic. He's very good at marketing, and he's very good at keeping it community. Another one would be Poetic. Same thing. Poetic and I played a few times, and both those boys are out of Auckland. Two kind of different styles of hip hop, but Poetic, his advantage is that he is the community rapper. I think he's got both of these guys have some awards under their belt. They played big shows and tours, but the marketing for these guys is fantastic. And Poetic does it through night markets and through reaching out in the community and some unorthodox ways of marketing in mainstream music. You don't usually see a rapper with as many accolades as Poetic sitting at the night market selling a CD, but that's his personality. That's him meeting people and becoming a part and continuing to be a part of his community and giving back. So those two guys, I think, are at the top of my radar of who does it best with good music, good marketing, good payout from beginning to end. A few other names: Il Baz, one of the best DJs and one of the greatest guys I've met. He's a fantastic guy and a very talented DJ. Reza Biza as well, another fantastic rapper from New Zealand, doing big things, and also pulling up other artists with him and giving others a chance at some industry connections and some wins. So yeah, those four are the first four that come to mind. And Bailey Wiley, who's always with the three Bs. Bailey, Bronson, Baz. Those three, they're a powerhouse. If you haven't heard Bailey Watson, man, she's fantastic. She got a voice like no other.
We'll add some links into the show notes to those artists, so people that are listening to you will think, okay, I want to go listen.
Absolutely.
Jump out into the show notes and we'll connect them up, so make those collaborations work. Yeah. How did you get into rapping? Like, when did you know that actually this is who I could be or who I've become? Was that in New Zealand, or was that where you originally grew up, or what? When was that moment?
That was in Cincinnati. So I've always been interested in music, and I've always played music since I was a little kid. But I was in pop and punk bands in high school and college, and it wasn't until maybe 2010 or 11 that I started to DJ. I taught myself how to DJ, and I wanted to make some extra money during college. I wanted to get some more music connects, so I started DJing in clubs in Cincinnati, and I provided support for a lot of big tours that came through the Midwest cities. And so I started to build quite a big base of industry connections that way, through touring and playing nightclubs as a DJ. But being a DJ, you're playing I wasn't producing, I was just DJing. So I was playing other people's music, and I would do mashups and stuff, but that's not really creating, to me. My shtick has always been words. That's been my thing since day one. And I've always liked writing songs, writing lyrics, and it's fun to DJ, but at the risk of hurting some feelings of other DJs, I felt like I was just a glorified cheerleader some nights. And I wanted to make my own music again. And so I started a hip hop group called Flowhio with my friend Wade. And we had a short run. We were only together maybe a year, a little bit more than a year. But we had really good internet success with the music. We had some radio stations all over the U.S. and Gold Coast and New Zealand who played our stuff. Oddly enough, that's kind of one of the things that led to me coming to New Zealand. And we had some great wins that built up a lot of motivation and a lot of, self-belief, I guess, for lack of a better term. Our first ever show was a headlining set at South by Southwest in Austin, Texas, the infamous festival. And we thought, hey, that's our first show. Like, we're good to go. All right. We had a 6-month contingency deal with a label out of Dublin. One thing led to another. Business wasn't fantastic with that end of things. And we only ended up putting out a single and a video with them. But all those small wins at a young age, we were 22, 23, 24 at this point, were very encouraging. And so I decided in 2015 to move to LA and go solo. And that's when I started Hoody Time. And 2 years later, I was on my first 2-week tour of New Zealand. We did 6 shows, and Portland Public House in Auckland called us like a day after the show and said, hey, can you fit in a farewell show? So that went surprisingly well. And at the risk of touching on politics, Donald Trump got elected. I wasn't trying to participate in the circus. So I got a visa and I kept touring, and we booked another 22 dates for 2017. And then 3 tours later, I'm still here, still making music, still trying to be that Kiwi.
Good man. What do you think is different about, this is a question I ask a lot of business owners who aren't from New Zealand and yet are specializing in New Zealand made products, which, music is a New Zealand made product. Yeah. What do you see in what New Zealand is? What's the thing that you like about it, and what's your perspective on it generally before I lead your question too much further?
I think that New Zealand is probably the most welcoming place I've ever been. That's the first thing that comes to mind. Every country has their issues. Every government has their issues. I'm not saying it's perfect. No place is. But I think that New Zealand is definitely the most welcoming place I've ever been. That goes for the randos that you see on the street, to the people that you meet in the music industry, to, anyone, honestly. Kiwis are apex human beings, I'll tell you that. I also love the culture and how many cultures are here. It's quite a melting pot. Coming from big cities in the United States, I'm very used to having multicultural society, all around me. And I love that is here as well. I think there's a lot of community here as well. There's a lot of focus on the family, on the community. And it's just a laid back place where people seem to just want to say hey and hear your story for a little bit at the pub. That's what I get out of New Zealand. There's many more things. I could go on forever, bro, but I ain't gonna waste your time raving about things that people already know.
I appreciate it, and it's good to hear sometimes an external perspective. I know sometimes in the media that Kiwis get downplayed because we're always asking for acceptance or permission from the rest of the world. But I think there's something that if you've grown up somewhere else, like my dad grew up in Canada, in Ontario. Yeah. And so my upbringing was half Kiwi on my mum's side. And then on my dad's side, it was very much Canadian, which is you're confident, you're ambitious, you're outgoing, you say who you are, you say what you're good at, and you make a play for things. And that's not the Kiwi way.
Very polite as Canadian.
Yeah. So like Canada and New Zealand get along quite well, probably like Australia and America in some ways. But he had a very different view on the place because he saw something that I think us Kiwis sometimes took for granted about that openness and that trust and that fairness and that willingness to give people a go. And And I think in these post-COVID times, particularly for both event managers, event club space owners, and the artists, we all need to support that ecosystem like it's our lives, because without artists in New Zealand, the rest of it's just a transaction. Like, I love banking, I love business, I love legal and accounting, but those aren't shows. They don't excite the heart, they excite the head. And I think that if we let that ecosystem wither, then we won't, it'll be hard to get it back. And I don't think it's going to take a lot from New Zealanders. Just like when we went from level 4 to level 3, there was a whole rush of e-commerce.
Yeah.
Let's just make sure the same thing happens when we get down to a level where large events can happen, that artists like yourselves are supported en masse. And it's just, we are selling out New Zealand pubs, clubs, and events because that's what artists need. So it shouldn't even be a question of, is this artist any good? Should I go along? Is it worth my time? It's like, I'm out every Friday, Saturday night somewhere, listening to someone new, whether it's music or comedy, just getting out again. And when does that, for you, when are you planning on that starting with your tour? Is that sometime around July, August? Would that be around the...
Man, it's so up in the air right now, huh? You touched on a good thought, though, on the fact that we should all be supporting New Zealand businesses, venues, and the artists that come with those spaces. I think, to touch on that, there's never been a better time, to support New Zealand art, but also to be a New Zealand artist, because our borders are still closed. Even if you're playing a show to 10 people at a house party, 9 people, including yourself, at a house party, you're all we've got right now, New Zealand artists. Go out there and play house parties. Go out there and do live streams. Go out there and play the club when it opens, as soon as it opens. You know what I mean? Because our borders aren't going to open up, even to Australia and the islands, probably for a month or two at least. Kiwi music's all we got. So on the artist side, capitalize on that. Get out there, play your shows, figure out a way to play shows in this post-COVID world, even if it's 9 people and yourself at a house party. And for people listening, go out and listen and support and go to the shows and go to those house parties, no more than 10 people, and support these New Zealand artists. We're all you got right now. And I'll tell you what, we're good. And I think that even leading up into COVID, the 3 years that I've lived here have been a huge awakening for me musically. There's so much good music in New Zealand that's happening, and it needs to be heard, and not just by Kiwis. I mean, like those guys I mentioned, Mellow Downs, Reza, all those guys could be on the world stage tomorrow if the right door opens. And that's how good New Zealand music is. And right now it's time to support those artists, and for those artists to find their crowd, as you know, even if they're intimate ones, to keep that going. So as you say, it doesn't wilt, right? So my idea with that is I kind of want to do a house party tour. I don't know when the borders are going to open. I don't know when venues can have more than 50 people or 100 people spaced out, right? So my idea was, hey, I want to go direct to you. You like Hoody Time music? Cool. Domestic travel is open. Cover the flights. I'll come to your house, 10 people, and we'll do house parties in whatever city people want. And I haven't figured out the details yet, but it's an idea. I did a mock-up tour poster. People seem to want it to happen. So, hey, if you're listening and you got a house party and you got 8 friends, yourself and me, let me know.
I love it. That's how some of that original, 1980s hip hop started off, was it just
Absolutely.
Tiny house parties. So in many respects, it's going back to the roots of hip hop. And I think it's a great message. Let's support New Zealand artists as much as we can, as much as we're allowed to. And then when those levels drop, let's make sure we go and listen to some new music. So if you are listening to this, thanks very much. You've been listening to Hoody Time. And if you want to keep listening to Hoody Time, not just talk it, but also musically, go on to whatever your top platforms would be. Spotify is going to be one for streaming. What, Hoody Time on Instagram for the visuals and kind of behind the scenes?
Yeah, just at Hoody Time on Instagram, / Hoody Time Music on Facebook. And I'm on every single platform and digital store you can possibly find. So if you're stuck, just Google Hoody Time and you're not going to miss me.
Love it. Awesome. Thanks very much for your time today, Hoody Time. I appreciate it. I appreciate what you're doing for the New Zealand music industry. And like, well done for dropping 12 tracks and actually making this lockdown time work for you. It's never easy being an artist. You're conflicted. There is pressure and strain on just trying to get that creativity out. And it's very easy sometimes to just drop the rubber band rather than trying to keep on pushing it to make something of it. So, I tip my hat to you for making that happen.
Oh man, if I didn't do anything during lockdown, I'd be mad at myself. I'll tell you what. I knew it from day one. I said, look, I got 4 to 8 weeks. I don't know how long this is going to last. Make some stuff or you're going to be mad at yourself. So
that's it. You've made the use of the time.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate your time today.
Yeah.
That's
thank
it.
you, Ryan.
That's it. You are welcome. This has been a Kiwi original brought to you by the New Zealand Made team. Thanks for watching. The New Zealand Made trademark is used by over 1,200 businesses in New Zealand. The New Zealand Made team licenses that trademark. Check if you're eligible at bynz.org.nz. If you feel that someone should see this, share it with them now. Otherwise, subscribe to youtube.com/bynzmade, and we'll see you on the next episode.